I'm Liz. I am married and I have a son who's doing his IB. I'm a lawyer by trade, working from home at the moment, but helping clients document their business deals or do their capital raising, particularly in the life sciences sector, which is a very positive sector to be working in. And I love gardening, so it's lovely to be sitting out in my garden where I like to work. So I grew up in a Christian family. My father was an Anglican minister, so I grew up knowing that God was real, knowing that Jesus was real, feeling that he was my friend, a part of my life. When I was about 11, someone came to our Sunday school and gave a gospel presentation, and that was the first time I'd heard it explained in that systematic way, and I realised, I actually need to make a commitment. So I made a commitment on that day, and that was when I was about 11, and I found that in the years after that I would go a bit up and down. Sometimes I think, I don't really feel like I'm a Christian, I don't feel like warm and fuzzy inside, and I think I should, and I'd recommit and go on for a bit longer and then have the same thing happen. And then when I was about 16, we had the last big Billy Graham crusade in Sydney, and so we went lots and lots of times with our church, and it was there when there was an altar call and the lovely music playing and lots of people going forward. I thought, I don't actually need to go forward. I am a Christian. I don't need to do anything more. This is it. So that was the real anchor point of feeling, okay, doesn't matter how I feel, doesn't matter if I feel warm and fuzzy or particularly spiritual, I've made a commitment to God, he's committed to me, and that's it. That's it going forward. Yeah. So I guess part of the Bible that helped me understand that was there's a verse in Revelation chapter 3 where Jesus says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if anyone hears my voice and open the door, I'll come in." And so I had that sense of I'd opened the door to my heart and Jesus had come in, and so there he was. So I think the Bible had always been part of life. I remember as a child, when we stayed with my grandparents in Melbourne, who were also Christians, we used to like getting up early with my grandpa, who is a builder. And every morning when he had his breakfast, he had a little book called Daily Light, which is like a selection of Bible verses for each day. And I can still remember him sitting there with the Daily Light, looking at it, reading it, and bowing his head and praying, and just being really struck by that pattern that, it's great to read the Bible every day, and preferably early in the day, so you kind of get that goodness for the rest of the day. The time when I struggled was actually in my adult life. So we have a son. We had a lot of trouble falling pregnant and staying pregnant. So I had 4 miscarriages over a period of 9 years before our son finally came along. And so that was hard. And the hardest time was the second miscarriage. So when I had a miscarriage, I thought, lots of people have one, I'll just get on and it'll be fine. And then it wasn't, took a long time to get pregnant again. And I finally did, so I thought, great, this is it, answered a prayer, we're on the way. And then I had another miscarriage, and that was utterly devastating. And I just remember feeling, why has God done this? It felt like a terrible slap in the face. It felt incredibly cruel. I just almost didn't want to have anything more to do with God. I really wasn't sure how to relate to God when this had happened. I remember people trying to be encouraging and saying, "Don't worry, God still loves you," and that just seemed incredibly hollow. But there was a little bit of me that thought, well, I'll just stay as close as I can. So, I went to church, but I didn't sing, and we left early. I still was kind of reading my Bible, and I can't remember how long elapsed between when it had happened and on this particular moment, but I was sitting in the train. This is the little Bible that I used to take on the train before we had Bible on phone, and I remember I was reading in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and that's Paul talking about something that he'd gone through, and we don't know what it was, but it was really difficult. He talks about a thorn in his side, and he talks about begging God to get rid of it, and God doesn't. And God says, in verse 9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. I remember reading that in the train and reading those words, my grace is sufficient for you, and thinking, okay, I don't know why this has happened and I don't know how God is going to get me through it, but this tells me that he will. And that verse has continued to be a source of great encouragement, that when I'm going through something difficult, and particularly when I don't know when it will end and I don't know why or what God's doing, that somehow he will get me through. You know, the Bible shows lots of real people engaging with God in lots of different ways. I love the Psalms because David is incredibly real about how he's feeling. The other thing that strikes me from the Bible is you see God's own love. So like when Jesus was on earth, when his friend Lazarus died, he goes to the graveside, he cries. His heart goes out. So if the God of the universe, who already knows the end of the story, still cries when we're in pain, I think that shows that his love is incredibly deep and real and visceral. In terms of my life nowadays, I do try to read the Bible early in the morning, so maybe while I'm having my breakfast I'll have the Bible open, because it just gives me that sense of I'm getting something good into my brain and my heart to sort of take me through the day. One of the blessings of just continuing to read scripture is that it does kind of get into your head, and it gives you a pattern. Like, it gives you encouragement, it gives you words to say when you're praying, when you're not quite sure what to pray. I love all the things in Paul's letters when he talks about, to the Colossians or the Philippians or whatever, I'm praying this for you and I'm praying that for you. And I think, I can pray that for my home group. I can pray that for our missionaries. It's in the Bible, so I know that it's a good thing to pray, that God's okay with this prayer, so I can pray it for anyone. Yeah. I used to find that I'd kind of skip slabs of it, like genealogies and things like that, because you think, why do I want to read all of this? And this year I've really tried to read even those bits that seem a bit tedious or boring, because I think, well, they're there for a reason. And so when you're reading like a genealogy, it's just a list of names. You think, well, each one of those people was important to God. They were important enough for them to be put in this list. And if they're just there because they're an ancestor of somebody else, but they're there and they're significant, I think that's encouraging to us, that we might just be one name on a church roll or an electoral roll, but for God we're significant, we have some meaning, and we're important to him. I reckon if you just read one verse, if that's all you can manage because you're busy or you're distracted or whatever, you just read that one verse. It's a bit like when I'm at home and I'm getting lunch and I'm in a hurry, I think I've just got time for a toasted cheese sandwich, and I think I'll pick some rocket from the garden and put it in my sandwich, and it's like a little bit of goodness. So that one verse, maybe that's all you read, but you've put a bit of goodness into your day. So that would be my word of encouragement to my brothers and sisters.